Millington. Hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa, ni hao, jambo, marhaba. It's time for an Armist Inquisition yet again, episode 333 on Sunday, the 4th of August, 2024. I'm Phil.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight we're very happy to be joined all the way from Colorado by the author of Vitaglyph, Greg Millington. How are you doing, Greg? Are you reading us?
I'm doing great, hearing you fine. Thank you so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. You emailed me out of the blue ages ago with your book, and I'll tell you what, I'm a big fan of books and reading and whatnot, and yours is the first and only book so far that I've read on a screen.
Oh my God! Wow, what an honor!
Yeah.
I don't think it is much of it's not much of an honor.
Yeah, did you hate the experience so much that it's a one and done?
He just wanted to get you on to shout at you for an hour, basically, for making him do it.
I know. Why'd you put it on the screen? Paper.
Have you any plans to get a printed version out there?
Yeah, for sure. The original plan was to put it out in this PDF version and hear some feedback if I could, and from people like yourself who read it, and I'm sure have some thoughts before finally putting out a hard copy. But I think probably by next month, a hard copy will be available, as well as probably something available on other e-readers. Right now, it's a PDF. Essentially, you got to read it with whatever your PDF reader is. So yeah, hopefully one day. And that's what I hope the formatting worked for you when you read it, because that was like a big concentration of mine, was to get the formatting of the pages right. Like you say, it's kind of a visual book, and that works to an extent on PDFs, but would be better on the hard copy and EPUB.
To be fair, I can't comment on that because I've never read a book on a laptop before. So
okay.
I sort of just scrolled down the PDF thing. I was just reading.
Okay.
I was just reading it and looking at the images. So
nice.
Formatting wasn't an issue for me, but I've no point of reference. So I'll say good job. Good job.
The best one you've ever read, then.
It's the best. It's the best PDF I've ever read. Wow.
That's going on the hard copy, by the way. Best PDF I've ever read. Hard copy, not so much.
You can quote me, fine. I'll send you my PayPal address after when we're finished.
Definitely.
Yes.
But so tell us a bit about yourself, Greg.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Uh-oh.
I couldn't hear you for a second. Sorry.
Oh, can you hear
Froze
us?
up.
I did hear a little static pop.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the government checking in and checking out.
Which one?
Yeah, it was Five Eyes.
Yeah.
Five Eyes have got, they use these algorithms, and as soon as they hear a word like Vitaglyph, that's it.
PDF.
Or PDF.
That's got to be a code for something nefarious.
Yeah, PD file.
It's not a real word.
So, what was I saying? Greg, tell us a bit about yourself. What's your background like, and how did you get into all this?
Background, I'm originally from New York. Right now I'm in Colorado, as you pointed out, and grew up in the Finger Lakes region, which I don't know if anyone has ever heard of or visited. But if you look in New York, they look like fingers and lakes in the middle of the state. And that's where I grew up, and then went to college at Syracuse University, studying philosophy. And after graduation, went to grad school in Sussex for cognitive science. And after that, I joined a startup in Boston, a neuroanatomy measurement startup in Boston, where I would be for the next basically 10 to 15 years before writing this book.
Nice. Neuroanatomy measurement.
Yeah, it's so you read the book, actually, so this is cool. There's an MRI image in the book at one point, and it shows like the crosshairs on one point of the scan. I've been looking at those scans for 15 years straight, and MRI data is interesting. It comes in 3 dimensions, and this might sound familiar as I say it, but it comes in a 3-dimensional data block, right? And if you have to measure everything inside the brain, it's really hard to see it from the outside or in. So what you do is you go slice by slice, and each slice you draw a little circle or figure around the region of interest you're working on. And doing that enough times creates a volume. And whatever researcher is studying that region, like say I would measure like 50 scans or something, and they would have a control versus something they're interested in to see if there was any morphometric change to that region. And that's basically what I did. And it was part of a startup, so I did that. Plus, we tried to build our own software that could do it more automatically. And yeah, it was a great run we had for 15 years.
That's cool. So are you saying humanity's moved on from measuring skulls with calipers?
Yeah, right. Not really. Yeah, didn't they used to use like pellets and stuff for
Right.
skulls?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
No,
there
there
you
you
go.
go.
Oh my god.
Here's my model.
Wow.
That's Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, the phrenologist.
He used to be on the podcast, but he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, we measured his brain. It was inconclusive.
Yeah, I'm still looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But anyway, that was neuroanatomy company, and you know, like a lot of things, though, automation eventually will eat everything. And you know, it's funny. Slowly, I got out of the human brain measuring and started like measuring things that the automation of other companies couldn't handle. So I was doing like tumored brains or like dogs or monkeys, training the AI of other companies to eliminate the need for me to have a job. And I think that's going to be a story for a lot of people in these other tech places. You know, the last thing you do in your career is going to be training this thing to not need you anymore.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
And then that's
It is, yeah.
But not podcasting. You got to have humans to do that.
Well. You mentioned something about dogs. I think that'd be a good. I'd listen to that.
Yeah. Dogs talking.
So you mentioned you had some philosophical background as well. Was that? Did you say that was undergrad or?
Yep. Yeah, I got my bachelor's. You know, majored in philosophy, minored in psychology, and then cognitive science for my master's. So I've been around, you know, the thinking brain my whole life from one angle or another, including the inside looking out thinking. And it was always towards this this question of, you know, what does it mean? What does it all matter? Does anything we do or think or say ever amount to anything? Because even the biggest statue will fall, whatever your favorite achievement or inner thought is will just go away. Hey, dust in the wind. You've heard that song, like, you know, it basically sums up. I wanted to just say that in the introduction, like, you've heard the song Dust in the Wind. That's the question I've always kind of been gravitating towards one way or another. And in undergrad, studied philosophy and, you know, kept saying, hey, I want to look at this problem, and, you know, got guided towards existentialism. And yeah, as much as I could understand that, it was great. And I respect it on an intellectual level. But it never like gave me that satisfying, like, I don't feel existential crisis anymore. I feel like I have a place now. You know, it's more like, all right, if I read more Heidegger, another 800 pages, then, you know, I'll get it. But it doesn't, you know, calm the heart down in those moments. So I think between undergrad and then grad school, and then definitely grad school, I turned my whole attention away from philosophy, really, and more towards evolution as being a way, something we should look at for this kind of question too, not just like for other categorization questions, but for this, you know, everyone at Sussex at the time was incorporating evolution into what they were doing. Like, if you were a roboticist, you would be evolving robots. If you were like programmer, evolving programs, like art, like it was just a buzzword everywhere. So I really started hunkering down on this and wondering, like, how, you know, might we just look at evolution? You know, this is the framework we use to explain life on Earth, and yet us living it can't get any solace from it in those moments, say, of existential crisis or something bad's happened in your life. You know, you don't turn to evolution. So I thought of looking at that as an opportunity. And I started to, yeah, I don't know if you had another question, but I can keep going with this thread of how I got to the book. I started thinking about evolution. Like, you've seen the phylogenetic tree. It's probably the image you call to mind the fastest. It's basically, yeah, just branching lines showing the species where they rank, not rank, but like where they are in relation to each other. That's the big depiction we have of evolution that we pull up, and yeah, wow, there it is. That's quick. And I don't know if yeah, it's funny. This is funny image. I just used random animals in it. This isn't like a true phylogenetic tree.
What?
Let me just rip that out.
What about the famous tortoise chickens?
I was just like, I got.
Oh,
But,
it's just
that's
showing the sort of mechanism, basically, or how the system works rather than the individuals on the system.
Right, yeah, how the total thing is. And like when we get into 4D, like any kind of system or process, stops being a system or process and starts like being a structure in 4D. So I started looking at the phylogenetic tree and thinking, it's so good at telling us where our species is in relation to other species. But it doesn't show any of the living. It doesn't show like your life right now, like us talking right now. It doesn't show up on that tree. Barely, we get one line for our species on that whole tree, let alone as individuals, and then let alone as individuals going through any experience. So I thought then in grad school that I was going to make a depiction of evolution that included inner lived states in there, the whole thing of an evolutionary run, not just categorizing it, not just making a schematic representation of it, but showing how actually evolution progressed from the first origin of life to the many species, and showing the lived experience of each organism through their lives. And then my hope was that, like, by doing this, we'd get the same relation amongst things that we got from species. You can tell where your species is amongst other species, and that's great. But now, if in this rendering, you could see where your inner state was in relation to every other inner state that had ever happened. And so have an idea of what you were actually feeling. Because if it's an existential moment, you're a bit wobbly, like that would be helpful to know, like, hey, I'm still part of this other thing. I'm a part of it. I contribute to it. My experience relates to other lived experiences. And even if it's just my rendering that I provide, it gives people a vocabulary or some imagery in those moments to draw on, versus, like we said, like Heidegger, Nietzsche, like other more intellectually taxing things in a moment you don't want to be intellectual.
Yeah, well, the inner affects the outer. So how we feel affects our actions. And that
absolutely
ripples through time, forward and back.
Yeah, and in the present as you're currently doing it. So I guess that would be the final part, is getting to the 4-dimensional aspect. Like, I sort of realized that it was 4-dimensional just even saying it. If you're talking about 3D organisms and then showing their whole lived experience through time, then that's 4 dimensions. You're already talking about a 4-dimensional representation of evolution. And just that's kind of unfortunately where it would sit for 10 years. Like I said, after grad school, I didn't have a chance to do it during grad school. I said I would work on it on weekends, and all my energies got soaked up with brain scans for 10 years that I didn't really. But it was okay, because over that time I transitioned more into learning more about like the block universe in 4-dimensional time, and I started thinking about it more in those terms, instead of like a depiction. I mean, it's still a depiction, but not just like a pictograph depiction. I could show people that they're really a part of something actually and real. Like, if we live in a 4-dimensional universe, and this is a 4-dimensional representation of evolution, then actually the thing I'm showing you is a real structure in space-time that you are a part of, and you contribute in building layer upon layer with all of your lived experiences.
Greg, does that
Sorry.
Does that not get you sort of more deeper into an existential crisis with humans having this unique drive to understand their individual experience? No other organism on the on that tree that we know of has any of that other experience, drive to understand it. They're just happy doing whatever they're doing, like
Sure.
fighting and fucking.
Most of them, that turtle especially.
Yeah. So, would it? And this is going completely opposite of probably everything you've done, but would it not have that state of stoicism, that almost nihilistic thinking, where it's just like, well, I'm fine with whatever I'm doing, and then off I pop, like every other organism on the tree. Is that not another way of curing the existential anxiety?
I think I see what you're saying there, but I guess I would say at the base level first, before we even get to anything, it's like keep me from falling down in an existential moment is like the first triage of an existential crisis. And just knowing that there is something, like, even if you think you're this worthless, mundane creature walking through life, to know that you are a part of something special, not just any other matter in space-time. You're part of something special and complex and elegant in all of space-time.
That's a lot of pressure to put on an organism.
But you can add to it just by having a
It's
beer,
a lot of opportunity.
It's
not pressure.
Playing some frisbee, whatever you do adds to this thing.
It's not pressure. It's potential.
It's the only thing in space-time that's going to look this elegant or this complex. Everything else, even if it's a complex, say, solar system, will look like just thatch or bramble compared to what we, as an evolutionary process, build in the fourth dimension.
You're right.
It would be a towering cathedral of like similarities and self similarities.
Yeah,
and
even
I always
stars and
hoped
planets.
there'd be a pattern there as well. So
the whole universe is just beholden to the laws of physics, and that's it. That's easy.
I mean, that's but that's another thing, is determinism is a nice way to kick off existential crisis, right? But this I try to say is like a balm for that as well. Like, if you're worried about determinism, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to accept determinism as true and still show you that you are part of something that's special, whether it's by your own choice. And we can be, if you're a person that prefers freedom over beauty, say, or something like that, then maybe that wouldn't be. But like in those moments, it's at least one more handrail that you can grab onto that says you are a part of something, you are special, even if you don't feel that way. And then the part about just saying, screw it and just doing whatever, it's like, yeah, but I'm okay with you saying that. I just don't want you to feel insignificant. I want you to know that you're special, whatever you choose to do, because you are adding on to this structure in space-time that would appear like the prettiest blossoms in whatever the block universe is. There'd be a bunch of thatch, as I said, and then blossoms wherever evolution happened on a planet.
Cool. No, I can dig that.
So maybe we should talk about the process a little bit. Like, how do you go about? So what we're talking about is like a three-dimensional. We'll get into 4 dimensions later, maybe, and what that means and what it is. But you come up with this idea of trying to create a 3D rendering of reality, essentially, and how an individual moves through time and things. So how do you even go about starting that? What's your starting off point?
So I knew there'd be a lot of programming, because I wanted this to be visual. I did not want it to be just text and numbers the whole way through. So I'm not like an artistic person at all, and I'm a very poor programmer. So there's quite a lot I had to learn. And I picked a framework called P5.js. It's a JavaScript framework for making kind of visual, whatever you want to make with it. And learned that and did the first basic half of the book in that P5.js. And then the second half was in Blender, which is a way more sophisticated way of render. I don't know if you guys have played around with that at all.
Yeah.
And it's funny, both were fine, except the transition from one to the other was like an extra few months, because, JavaScript to Python, and I had to convert all this stuff. But I really started, I had all these notes, from 10 years of, being at work, but I'll squirrel away some notes about, I want to do this project. It's kind of my life's work. I want to do it forever. And so when I sat down to actually work on it, which was during the pandemic, we all had some time on our hands. I'll get around to my life's work, I figured. And I did that and started to put together my notes. And a lot of the written stuff was I already got that. And I'm like, I just need to now show the thing. And it was the project to me was writing was a little bit of it, and then so very much just programming and problem solving in that.
So, I mean, but you go through different stages of development in the book. We start off with the different colors, and before you
do you want me to pull that up at all, or I can?
You can do it. Yeah. I can do it if you want, from the book.
Well, I'll pull it up and then maybe share it. If I can figure out that move. share my screen. Yeah. I don't know. Can you see this?
No.
No? All right, that's not going to work then. I was going to show it full screen. Anyway, I can talk about what you were...
I might be able to pull it up as you're talking.
Let me see here. Failed to start. Please try again later. All right. I don't know how to do that. I apologize to that. All right. Well, regardless, yeah, you mentioned the progressions through it. So, yeah, I guess I got to the point where I could visualize that or conceptualize that I'm building something in 4D. And what that means, though, is that I have to show how matter moves from moment to moment, which is kind of a weird concept to wrap your head around in the moment. Like right now, we think we're 4 people kind of loose in the world. You know, we're loose bodies moving around. But the trick is to start thinking of yourself as moving along a time dimension.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's changing from one moment to the next is the arrangement of matter in your body, in the books behind you, the table, the whole world and universe beyond that. That's the only difference between one moment to the next. So if you're building a 4-dimensional representation of evolution, everything that the organism goes through in its life means that the matter would have changed within them. So that's what I'm trying to show in this evolution. Like, I think I said to you, this is what I think God would see if he looked down on an evolutionary process. Like, I think God would see us not as, hey, those are 4 guys talking. They would see like 4 strands, and like some are going up and down and wiggling depending on how their states changed from moment to moment. Like, that's how God would actually see us, like more like an anthill. Like if you've ever seen them pour molten aluminum in an anthill and it makes all those like trails and you see all these networks of ants in there. That's what God would actually just see if he was looking down on Earth. He would just see, yeah, it's a planet, but it has this interesting network texture. And that's every organism that's ever lived, moving moment to moment, churning the matter within them by their lived experiences. And so that's why in the book, yes, sorry, I didn't pick up what you're saying by progressions. I thought you meant the development progressions, but yeah, in the book, my hope was to make what I call a matter-focused view of evolution, showing just how evolution would happen as it was moving through matter. And so the first couple, implementations were easy ones. Like this one, this just occurs to you even as you're just thinking about it. Organisms start out small and then get bigger throughout their life, generally. That's the whole idea of like energy and
growth.
Increase energy, they grow.
Yeah.
So instead, that phylogenetic tree should, start with lines small and then get bigger as they grow older. Yeah. Ideally they would be in the shapes of the organisms too, but that's for another edition or something. And another one is like an evolutionary process, not like the phylogenetic tree that like shows a parent and then all the offspring that come out. A truly representative one would show that when each offspring happened, because this is time moving in this dimension. So you can't just show like, oh, all 12 children happened at once. You have to show where they happened, when they happened, who they connected with when that happened, wink, wink, all that stuff. It has to be reflected in a 4-dimensional view of evolution. And the biggest one is like, the interactions between people. Like, if one of you stands up and just cold cocks the other person, both people's states change. One anger, one like shock. Both of your inner states change. Your heartbeats change, your neurochemicals change, your muscles, your postures change. And that's when you interact. So I wanted to show that when any organism interacts with another organism, there's a state change in both of their bodies, and that has to be reflected in this 4-dimensional representation. And one day, if I can ever do it, sort of inner processes, like I'd like to show that just internal thinking should be reflected in it, or just doing things alone too.
So as well as physical interaction, as you've just given a fine example of, you're interacting with us now from across the pond through fiber optics, and our respective states are changing as a result of that. If you watch something on the telly, emotional states change.
Propaganda.
It's complicated.
It is, but think about it this way, imagine the actual Vitaglyph on Earth. At this moment there's a guy in Colorado and then 3 guys in the UK, and they're kind of synced, or at least
We've got our 40,000 listeners as well. They're all there. They're all tuning in, watching this, and being
and that's
in the States.
I mentioned that in the book too. It's sort of my own. I don't know what the world's going to be like, but I know what it would look like in my construction. Eventually, we're going to be just locked in. It's going to stop looking like wiggly lines, and we're all just going to be home, and yes or knowing things from our homes, and we'll kind of be all synced up.
Not everyone.
Nice and safe.
There'll be plenty of holdouts in the woods, I assure you, who don't join the metaverse.
And so they would be like the cool, like, last strands. When a gemstone becomes a gemstone, there's still some last strands of stone that continue on. It's a nifty way of looking at a lot of different things. I wrote in the book about Sisyphus. The myth of Sisyphus, and yeah, it's sad. But, if it were real, like in the Vitaglyph, it would look like almost a little stitch, like a little seam that just went forever, because he rolls the hill, or he goes up the hill, the boulder falls down, up again. So it would just look like a stitch that goes the whole length of our Vitaglyph. And that on its own, that's not going to make him feel like, oh, okay, this is fine then. But like it, once in a while, when he's at his worst, like, it's an extra thing that he can feel some pride about, or a different context in his life about, which is really just all I can offer is like, hey, here's a second context to who you are if you ever need it.
You mentioned determinism before. Maybe you should give us your views on determinism and free will and how this. There's 2 things about this block universe. Like, I don't know how much you guys have read about it. I haven't read a whole lot, as much as I can online. But there's one like the eternal block and one the growing block. And if you believe in the eternal block, it's like all the moments in time are already part of this block, and we're kind of traveling through them. And then the growing block is like us right now are the vanguard of every addition to the block. And it's like billowing smoke, and we're on the outer edge, everything we do. That one would be probably more fun, especially if you like free will and you want to keep free will. I tend to think, and I'm like, there's so many ways that determinism is going to pop up. You might as well just accept it and try to come up with something. So in this, I think in the book, I accept eternal block, and you see I put the future as well, and the past, not just the present, in my final image in the book. And that's because I believe the things ahead of us also exist, the moments ahead of us. And I can trip you out a little bit with this thought, if you're ready for it. It's you think you're thinking right now, you think you're thinking the thoughts, but actually, like, what you're doing is you're experiencing brain activity, and that brain activity is material based. Our feelings just map exactly onto the matter underneath them. It has to, if you believe in souls and stuff, and that's cool too, but it has to map. So really, what you're experiencing, just like if you were to drag your fingers on the side of a cave or along choppy water, you are feeling what the block universe is in this exact space right here from the inside. Your thought is what the matter would feel like at this time and spatial location in the block. And you are just kind of passing through. What you are passing through, I don't know. That I don't know yet. We, for another book to understand what consciousness might be, I don't know. It might be some energies passing through that area, and maybe that's what makes us conscious. Might just be that we're a collection of moments that each feel, but we're never like moving. We're just only one of them is feeling. There's a lot of different ways, but like if you get used to that feeling, it's almost like a superpower that you can call up anytime. It's like, I'm not having this thought. I'm gliding along these fracture patterns in the block. Maybe I'm a glimmer of light just passing across these fracture patterns, but inside it feels like just thoughts. So it's, again, just a way to give you a little bit of a remove from what might be bothering you. Right, got you.
Whoa.
Yeah. I think one of the things that interests me and things that I've read about in this sort of area is time itself. Does time even exist? Is time not just a construct of our consciousness and our sensory organs' lack of acuity?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can't see in the fourth dimension. That's
It's kind
the
of
limiting thing.
It's kind of arbitrary how we measure it, isn't it?
Time.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree to that too. I don't know the latest theories on this. I know Stephen Wolfram had some ideas that there is some fundamental time unit. That was a big inspiration of mine, is a new kind of science. But I don't know what I mean, I can only just tell you what my hunch is that we're all, whatever the division of time is, however small or big, that there have to be a collection of moments. I think this is what Einstein was getting at, in special relativity, that, the past, the future, they're just an illusion. All time is technically just
Happening
right
at
now.
once.
Like right now, we're cohabitating with dinosaurs. We just, can't see them. They say block, but it's really just all one thing right now. Like there's one moment. This feels just as real as something 10, 20 million years ago would have felt. Like they're both just as real. So yeah, it's a construction how we think of time and all that, especially because it's the peculiar thing. Our way of seeing time is the peculiar way of seeing time, just one way, can't see the future. Like it's already odd right out of the box. And that was a big thing in the book. I hate that I can't pull it up, but how to represent ourselves in the block universe, knowing that really we are just this superimposed set of moments in time, how many trillions. How do I show evolution in that? I want to show God sees evolution, but how do we see into the block? Like, how do we conceive of it? And it's a tough problem because we can't see in the fourth dimension. We can't see more than 3 dimensions. So I've had to flatten every world basically to 2 dimensions just so I could make a rendering. But then how do you order the moments? Like, this is a little, it's a block, this is my wife's office. So there's crystals and blocks here. So like, say I just said, this is the block universe, and I just put some evolution right here, the texture that I came up with that represents evolution plus interstates. That's fine and all, but it's also like a cop out, because this is not what the block universe looks like. What's over here? Like, why is it just left to right? Like, it's just but if you look up block universe, that's all you get is like a bunch of cuboids representing the block. And I was like, that's not a satisfying way to conclude my book. So I came up with this new orientation for space-time based on how we would look into the block, given that it's all around us, we're already in it. Every moment is upon us. But like, we have one thing that's going to make it possible that we can imagine how we would look into the block, and that's the arrow of time. Yeah. We only see one way. We see the past and the present and 0 future. So that was my way of saying, well, we do have a lens. So however we look into the block universe, into this all space-time at once, there is a lens we go in there to begin with. And that's that we can't see the future. We can see a little bit of the present, and we can see quite a bit of the past, actually, because light takes so long to get to us. We're actively perceiving the past right now, and some of the present, and 0 of the future. So that was my key to actually being able to show. Ben, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to go back to your Sisyphus analogy, and about maybe seeing a small amount of distance into the future with prediction. So Sisyphus knew that boulder was going to roll down to the bottom of the hill, in the same way that we know that if we put a snooker ball on top of an incline, it's going to roll down towards somewhere. We know that's going to happen, and we'll set up an experiment and try it, and it will be proven right.
Yeah.
But I mean, barring any sort of weird nonsense that's going to stop that from happening, is that predictive nature of our ability a way to see into the future for a short period?
Yeah, I mean, I would accept that too. I guess the constraints in the book are that I'm saying perceptually, things we're perceiving. So I would contend that our perceptual starting point is that I can't physically look. Yeah, I can predict, you're right, internally, but I can't visually perceive the future.
until it's
But
happened.
I can perceive the past, the moon, however many seconds ago that light came from.
But
The star a year ago, a light year ago has finally got. So I'm perceiving the past right now. I'm actively perceiving the past. But in the future, I can only make internal predictions, maybe. And the present is actually, this is the same mind-blowing thing from a second ago. The present is actually that thing I was just talking about. That's the only time you're actually experiencing the present moment, is when you're thinking your internal thoughts, because then you are experiencing something, you're perceiving something, and it isn't any distance away from your perception. Whereas even this glass of beer is a nanosecond away from my perception. I'm perceiving a nanosecond this beer in the past. The only present is between my ears when I'm in a sensory deprivation tank or something and that's the only thing that's present. And so that's why I constructed it the way I did: past, big number, present, medium number, future, zero to start. And as we look into the block, those moments open up from those starting points. So the future starts out the smallest, the present bigger, and the past biggest in our perceptual capabilities. And so that's why the final picture in the book shows the block in a way that I haven't seen before. I hope someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but in a future centric orientation, where all the future moments are at the center and the past moments get to the back, to the outer, if that makes any sense. And dang, let me try sharing this one more time.
I think I was just thinking about that picture I saw before, about how we conceive of time. I'm just it was this one here. I don't know if that would be illustrative.
Oh, that one's, yeah, that's great. Yeah, since I don't think you guys can see my screen.
It's just come up now.
Yeah, should be able to.
Should we do my screen?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, we can do, if you can throw it back up.
So you're seeing this.
I will in a minute. I just have to jiggle some things about. What? That's not what I was expecting to see. That's because I've hit the wrong thing. Display capture, window capture. This is what I want. Automatic. Right, that should be okay.
Your Chrome window.
Yeah, and I go to transform, fit to screen. There we go. Yes, I've got it up now. Oh no,
That's
I haven't.
you?
No, I haven't.
I'll just stop this share thing. It's,
I will get it. I just.
This is actually good enough. We just look at that one. But
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is great. This is perfect. Yeah. This is the top image is just showing the states as if they're spheres, and just in a sphere that describes a whole universe. So you have to kind of imagine each sphere representing the material arrangement of a universe at that moment. And at the top, you can kind of see that they're over each other, superimposed, as they would be, as they are on us right now. But at the bottom is how I think they would perceive, like as soon as we duck our head in or pop our head in or whatever, open the door to the block, I think the first initial rush of moments would inhibit future moments from our perception, because they start at zero. It's all new. Anything that comes in from a future moment coming into my perception is brand new. I've never perceived it before, but the past moments I have perceived more. So when they're coming into my perception, future moments have to come in farther or further and farther, then do past moments. And that makes them like Russian dolls. That has a Russian doll collapsing effect, whereas future moments will appear small and past moments big in our final image. And maybe you can go there. I don't know if we can get it in a 2-page view though.
Which image are you talking about?
No, that would be too hard if we can't do 2-page view. And I can't show this thing, which is a bummer. But yeah, so that's basically the space-time orientation that I came up with, and it has a couple of cool, I don't know, fun little treats that come out of it. Is in this construction, if you can imagine that outermost black moment, the past moment, would have to be the first moment. The most past moment is the Big Bang. It's the singularity, and in this construction, it's on the outermost periphery, right?
Okay.
Which is weird to think about. But it allows you to think about the singularity, I think, in a more human way. Like hearing that the singularity was this absolutely dense point in time, and everything was in this one point, is kind of hard for our brains to. But like in this construction, you can picture it, the Big Bang and the singularity being everything outside of that first moment, and we are just in a sort of a cave of that first moment and all the moments subsequently. This is how it would look to us if we dipped our head in the block.
And I suppose the other thing is that you've delineated the different moments there, but time is a continuum, so all these moments would be stuck together essentially, wouldn't they?
Exactly, yeah. And in the final images, you see, I actually, because I am flattening all 3D volumes to 2D, the planets end up looking like stalactites. Like they're like hanging and getting smaller as they go to the future moments. They're all connected, and that's how planetary bodies would look in this construction. They would be long, like stalactites, stalagmites coming at us from all directions, swirling as they do with their constellational movements. And on some of those stalactites would be like some interesting looking textures, almost like ores in a cave, like you finally found the diamonds in the cave. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
I love this one. Yeah,
thanks. That's so that's sort of the whole thing. That outer shell is the Big Bang, and it's outward now. So imagine it all outward. And this way, I was telling you the block that I was like, well, I don't want to not show the things around the block. Well, here I am showing it. That is everything, and that's sort of like the way the universe would look to us if we popped our head into the fourth dimension to see it. And like, so the Big Bang thing is one thing that's cool, but also I can just show the whole thing. I can show all of it. I'm not like faking you. I'm not saying like I know what's outside of the block universe or anything like that. I don't have to show any negative space around whatever I'm showing you. This allows me to just show everything we know now about sort of time and evolution. And if we're to believe Einstein and Darwin, and also the arrow of time, I think it would look like this if we ever got the pleasure of looking in. And you can see kind of, I don't know if we zoom back, maybe go backwards a couple pages. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Greg, the good texture. Sorry?
The point in the middle there on the, after the blue crystals, is that like the heat death, the end of time, or the heat death of the universe, or whatever?
It's whatever the future holds.
And the stalactites or mites. They are so they're the celestial bodies of representative of a single body, I guess. And the point is the end of that, the existence of that body, right?
Exactly. Yeah, those other ones might be asteroids or small planets.
So
the ones that
where
got more
does that
interesting are like
go?
Earth stuff. Yeah. Sorry.
Would that not all go to the center because of the laws of?
So remember, each one is a time. So like, look at the tip of one of those stalactites. That's when that planet stopped being a planet. And time keeps going on inward.
I see. Yeah.
And some are still going. So, and this is one of the points where I guess I make a choice that the future exists, because I show where our evolutionary texture is on one of those planets as, this pretty thing. But like, I think you can see that it doesn't make it to the center. I don't think in this one or the other one there. And there's another texture on the other side of the other page, on the left-hand page. We're just saying some other evolutionary body out there in the world where life happened. It's not lit up, but that's sort of what I'm contending. Like, this would all look like to God, or this would at least look like in all of space-time, that there's a lot of boring matter movements, there's a lot of chaotic matter movements, and then there's complex, elegant matter movements, and that's us.
That sort of explodes.
No matter what kind of day you're having, just know you're contributing. Yeah, that's the texture as we get closer in. Yeah.
Fucking
That's the same as the color lines earlier in the book. These have just been converted to 3D, which was a whole month of work.
Yeah, so like earlier in the book, you start just by plotting sort of color coding stuff, and we ended up with arrangements like, oh, here it is, like this here.
Yeah, that's another example of genetic algorithms,
so
which I guess I never mentioned. That's what I use as the basis for this, for my substitution for actual evolution. I'm using genetic algorithms and making them look more matter realistic.
Yeah. So we go from
and so this to you can flip through
to these ones.
So it's starting to look more like what organisms moving through 4D time
structure
would look like.
And then we get to
yeah, so this one's fun.
If anyone's got any shrooms, now might be a good time.
I know you're freaking out, man. You're part of this melange of stuff. I don't know.
And this was interesting because you're talking about because we've talked about living things mainly, haven't we? Humans and animals and whatnot. But you don't negate to incorporate inert matter, rocks and whatnot in.
Yeah, that stuff is my substitute for rocks and sand and ice. And since they don't change moment to moment, they are the same. They're like sheaths over the time dimension.
It's some mad shit's gonna happen right towards the end of the universe, though, right? You know, everything turning to lead or whatever.
Yeah,
it's gonna get funky.
There for it. Yeah. So that is this. Thanks for putting this one up, because this one's the one I hope people like get something from. Like in your everyday life, just every once in a while, just look around at the things around you and just imagine how boring they would be in all of space-time. They would be like a boring part of the rock. And then you, in that scene, are making the interesting part of, you're making the gemstone or the gold or the complex mineral going through stone.
Oh, like the, what do they call them? Is it not a vein in a rock?
Yeah, veins going through a rock or marble or something. You are that part. And you know, I'm going to use the language of free choice, but like if you choose to act a certain way, you can kind of imagine what kind of effect you're having on your trace. You're only responsible for your trace through 4D spacetime. Are you the kind of trace that makes the traces around you happy or worse? Is the whole of your trace just like everyone around you just not having fun and having bad etches in their own trace, or good ones? Do you want to complement the Vitaglyph from what you think are good features or bad features? Do you want to oppose things? Do you want to do things that have never been done before? Like that astronaut I mentioned in the book, you know, there was one astronaut, Michael Collins, who was the loneliest astronaut or whatever. He had to go to the far side of the moon. In our Vitaglyph, he would have a special little distinction as being, you know, the farthest away from the hole. And like, I know he never thought that, but like we can all, like Sisyphus can think his thing. We can think like there's a way to incorporate this language into your life that I hope enriches people. And my projects going forward are going to try to make it more realized. Like I mentioned a bunch of stuff in the book that I want to implement, and I still want to find a pattern in it. I want to find like if there is a pattern, because so much of evolution is duplicates and things happening over and over again, and the same structure of being encountering the same circumstances. So I think there's going to be some sort of self-similarity in the final rendering of a Vitaglyph. This is just version 1, and I hope to just keep working on it.
Well, there's all sorts of other considerations that maybe we're not as hot on as we could be. Things like chaos theory, probabilities. You wonder how accurate your model could get. You know, if you were unleashed, imagine we're 30 years into the future and everyone at home has a computer with the power of, say, DeepMind or something like that, or whatever the top modern supercomputer
brings me back. Yeah.
You know, what could you do with that extra computing power?
Yeah, I was 2 too deep in this to even look at AI. Like AI started rolling out as I was like, studying Python and trying to get Blender to run right. So I haven't even gotten to use too much of it, but I'm hoping that at some point I can start feeding in like more and more features to something and it can incorporate it, because it's a real daunting problem to even think about, some of the things I'm like, here's one, we're all inside of each other. I've got fauna, I have microbes all over me, I've got, organisms aplenty in me. So the distinction between one organism and another, that'll have to be addressed at some point. Like,
well, this is what I'm getting at. Well, that's what I was thinking. I don't think there is a distinction, Greg. There is no distinction. It's one of the takeaways I've got from a lot of my reading is this idea of unity, that everything's connected. And I think that you address this in the book, and it's one of the takeaways I had, that, we are all connected, and not just us as individual humans, but you mentioned gut biome. I mean, we've got trillions and trillions of little organisms that live with us, and it doesn't end there, and our lives are codependent, co-influencing. Everything we do has an effect. It might be some decisions might be small effects, and other people have really massive effects. I love that idea,
and it's something in the. I mean, it's not exactly in the book, but I allude to it's like if you're looking at the block and you're looking at the part where the Earth is in the block, and there's land and ice and stuff, and that'll be what it looks like, just sheaths. But the structure of us will, not just because it's complex, not just because there's self-similarity, but there will be like little waves of impact here and there. Like I said earlier, I said someone punches someone in the face, but say you're at a stadium, it's nice and quiet, and then you stand up and do something boisterous, and now it waves through those traces those people are making because of your actions. If you all enter a cold room at the same time, you start shivering, and you're all your traces. So yeah, we're connected in how we influence the traces that everyone around us is making. And that's another reason why the structure would look so impressive in all of space-time, because it's not just complicated. It kind of interweaves. Little elements can have big impacts, but you see patterns emerging. I agree with you. Yeah, it's all connected. And this idea of each moment being connected is a fun one to think about, like that you're passing along the moments. You're just like a roller coaster riding on rails. Like we lose free choice there, but
well, not necessarily. Reality transurfing. It's like we're talking about time being the fourth dimension, and the other three dimensions, like length, width, and breadth. We arbitrarily create units. There is no units. There is no, you can go as far deep in. If you could have a microscope, electron microscope, you can go down to any level you want. It's an infinite continuum, just as time is. We just arbitrarily chop it into millimeters, feet, inch, yards, seconds, minutes, hours.
Yeah, 100%. Especially like with now acceptance of a multiverse is kind of becoming mainstream, and that's another thing I think we're just connected to as anything else. I think that the moments are on top of us too, but I think the multiverse is on top of us too. And it might be another level of connection to other universes on top. In my final image you showed there, how the singularities here, like it's fun to think about the multiverses. They might just be other pockets, around our one cavern that we just saw there. That could be a multiverse thing. But yeah, I think thinking along the lines of fourth dimension and just us progressing through it versus we are what we're experiencing is a neat way to add on to what you're saying, because that is continuous. It's just you're gliding along these moments, and those moments are connecting different organisms at the same time. So yeah, I would tend to agree. Yeah, and you can see from my images that everything is connected. There's nothing like discrete separating anything.
Do you think that the reason we conceive of time in moments like that is because of a deficiency? Well, not deficiency, because it's the way we're made, but a lack in our perceptual apparatus. And that
I do think so. I mean, I didn't really the arrow of time I looked into a little bit, but what I think is that these fracture patterns in the block, however you want to picture them, fracture patterns or like lines that I say we're following along. imagine that they're kind of like winnowing, or like they go to a point, each of these fracture patterns that our minds are alone, and maybe in some way that restricts just forward perception. Everything else can be perceived but except forward perception. Might be the nature of our patterns that, like I say, we're following along, maybe like a glimmer of light following along fracture patterns. It might just be that it's the nature of those patterns that, like, when you're in it, there's no forward ability to look. But it also makes this interesting effect we all understand of, is living in the present slash past.
Because
that's what I would say.
We can't actually see the past or the future. We can only see the present. If you think, a good way of thinking of it is to go through the dimensions, is that a line is an infinite continuum of dots. A plane is an infinite continuum of lines. If you take a cube for the easy example, a plane is an infinite continuum of lines, and a cube is an infinite continuum of square planes. And we're the cube. And we see the next dimension, time, as an infinite continuum of moments.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's just our, maybe if we could escape, or we could enhance somehow, we will be able to see.
I'd love that.
We'd be able to see
physically
time,
to be able to do that.
Past, present, and future all at once. That's what a 4D being would be able to see. Yeah,
like the Tralfamadorians, Kurt Vonnegut. I don't know if you ever read that one.
No, I don't know. What's that? Is that a novel or?
Slaughterhouse-Five.
Oh, I've never read that. I think
it's dead short. Yeah, you've got it. It's
in here somewhere.
It's got a 4D being in it. It's pretty cool. Yeah, that might be one of the only representations I could think of like a 4D being. But yeah, they described as like, like kind of centipede, like legs a million, that's what we would kind of look like too. I'd like to make it a little shinier, like in my representation, but yeah, I mean, that is the limiting thing. We can do it like this, though, sort of just by, renditions of what it might look like, and surmise if this is actually how it would look or not. And then in the book, I tried to make my choices clear on which ones I was doing. Didn't want to pretend that there was like some artistic license being used. It's like all this stuff is Einstein, Darwin, Arrow of Time, and then Blender, So this is my way of showing that. But if I could change my glasses and then I can see in the fourth dimension, like it would be wild. And I think about it all the time, as you can see from this book. This is just my first best guess at what we would see if we could look in the block and look back towards the evolutionary history and be like, holy shit, I'm part of some glimmering awesome structure. And in fact, I just added a cool notch onto it. It's a different way of thinking about it, but hopefully I can come up with a rendering that maybe you'll like in the future as well.
Well, going back to what we talked about right at the beginning, and it crossed my mind at the time when you were talking about existential angst and the people who sort of worry about the meaningless of life floating around on this speck of dust in a chaotic universe. And it was part of the motivation why we started doing this. If you think back, I mean, most people might remember the grandparents. Some might know the great-grandparents. One generation after, those people who are dead, there's nothing. There's no memory. There's no living sort of part of them in this universe. They've ceased to exist for all intentions and purposes. But we live in an age now where for very cheap, relatively little money, you can put your thoughts down, your personality down on a platform like this, and as long as you keep paying every month, you'll be immortalized on the internet. And this is an opportunity that hasn't existed before for anyone on Earth.
That's right. This is different. I mean, if you could be online all the time, every time, then it would be like a good representation of you, and capturing your full life. But like, there's those moments where you're not like being recorded and you're just like on the toilet and being like, what does it all mean? Toilet stuff. And for those moments, it's good to have an extra little thing. I don't know, but existentialism was tough for me, and like even using the word in the book, I just got like sweaty already. I was just like, I don't even know if people want to hear it that way or not. And I don't actually know and I hope people, I mean, I don't hope people still have existential angst, but I hope like there's enough people who feel that way and could use a little bit of help, a little bit of anchoring or mooring for the way they're feeling. You know, if even though people are online and recording more than they ever have, you know, what happens when humanity is gone and the internet's gone and everything dies out? Then, you know, sun takes us over, everything's kaput, you know, all of our digital media goes away, everything goes away. So like you could frighten yourself back into a crisis if you need it then.
God. Well, what are you working on now? Are you...
So yeah, just I've been thinking about the hard copy, just trying to get that out to people in the right formatting, and I'm hoping in the new year I can start on another follow up to this, and I think I'm gonna do another rendition of everything, try to update the Vitaglyph and my space-time orientation of it, and also add like more things I've been thinking about. I really started to enjoy writing again when I was doing this, and I think a lot of it's going to be writing. You know, I thought like, what are some meditations that might be interesting to do thinking about this? Like what would a meditation look like if you were trying to think in the 4D of leaving a specific pattern in 4D? Is it just saying the words, or is it something different? Like, you know, you have to elevate your heart rate. You have to remember your childhood gym teacher, and you have to recite the recipe to, I don't know, banana split. Like, what if there's some combination of different brain regions that you can hit and activate that, like, you know, will leave a certain pattern in 4D, like stuff like that. Like an easier version would be like, I wanted to get a tattoo of the Vitaglyph, but I wanted it to be meaningful in 4D as I pass through 4D. Like, what would that object or shape look like? You know, like little things like this that I'm trying to have a little bit more fun, because the book was just such a bear, not knowing as much programming as I wanted going into it. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna hopefully work on in 2025 and have done that year. And this is it going forward. This is my project going forward. So I don't know, if you'd like to have me back, that would be wonderful.
Hell
You
yeah.
guys are awesome to hang out with.
Yeah, I was just glancing at the comments then. Be a great returning guest.
Yeah.
Nikki Anna. Oh, Nikki. I think Nikki Anna's in the chat. Hi, Nikki. Yeah, we love space time and quantum quandaries are always interesting, aren't they?
Absolutely.
And
Wow.
the nature of consciousness.
Oh yeah.
It's all a mystery to me, and that's what makes it interesting, you know.
Yeah, mystery to everyone. You know, we're all just trying, everyone who's just their best guess, because it's such a difficult problem. But
yeah,
I like what you know they're doing in neuroscience now, and what little I understand from in the physics world. Like it seems like we're getting closer to an idea of what's going on, right? Like it seems even the James Webb stuff gives me some positive thoughts. Like, you know, so stuff's coming out, we're learning more and more. We're going to be able to eventually like relate ourself and our inner experience to everything we know is happening in the universe. That's sort of what this book was about. And I think like now there's a real thirst for some kind of meaning, because every other expert or trusted source has kind of gone to the wayside in the last like 10-20 years. Like, you know, no one goes to college really to get the truth, or their political system to get their truth, or now even Google to get their truth.
No.
You know, people are trying to just find it out for themselves, something they can believe in solidly.
Doing their own research, as it's called.
Yeah, doing their own research, and like, yeah, like look at how many books you got behind you, for God's sake. Like, you know, you can go toe to toe with any professor anywhere. You know, it's all about just accessing the information now. You know, and we know as much as anyone else does, and we're allowed to invent things too with what we know. You know, there's nothing stopping anyone, and especially now. I would recommend people, you know, try to find their own version of meaning, because everything else in life is, I don't know, seems less meaningful or less steady than it used to be. So now's the time, and I hope this book was one addition towards that.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a great place to leave it.
Fantastic, mate.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
This
Thanks
has been great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. The link's in the show notes. It's up there on the screen as well, vitaglyph.com, if you want to get a digital copy. Or what do you reckon for a hard copy, Greg? A few weeks, a month?
Yeah, September something. But
September.
yeah, grab the PDF for now, and if you can do it in the expanded view, it's meant for 2-page view, just for the reader, just so certain images land better.
Will we be able to get the hard copy? Will it be on your website direct, or?
I'm gonna have it on my site, and I might look into Amazon as well for that too.
Well, let us know. Let us know when you're
Definitely.
letting it, and we'll put the bat signal out when the hard copy comes out. All right.
Super. Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Greg. I'll drop you an email tomorrow. And
Absolutely. Thank you.
nice to meet you. All right.
Nice meeting everyone. Have a good one.
Cool.
Cheers, you too, man.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Right, fantastic. We'll be back in 5-10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
After a short recess, do some headlines,
Yes.
some housekeeping. I've got quite a bit of funny stuff tonight, actually. Yeah, quite a bit of funny stuff.
Right. Okay.
How do I download a PDF?
We'll talk later.
Yes.
Right, stay tuned. Back in 10. Ta-ra! Bye.